Hands up, nobody move and nobody gets hurt. This is a stick up by Jerry and Adrian, the Legalized Robbery podcast.
Welcome to Legalized Robbery podcast. You are here with your gracious host, Jerry, joined by the one and only Romanian stallion, Adi. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great.
Magnificent glasses. Truly.
Well, you said we should have a baller episode, and I'm ready for the baller episode, man.
Come on, man.
I'm down.
Look like money. We look like money in a in a downturn.
Exactly. I look like I'm ready to buy the dip, but I'm not. Yeah.
How you been? How's your week been? How's your weekend been?
It's good. The weekend was nice. I was a bit home, and I did some stuff there. It was chill. And now I got back home to Cluj, and this weekend I'll be going to some. We're gonna have a team building, which is gonna be fun. We're gonna do some climbing and stuff like that.
Nice.
Good stuff this weekend. Yeah. It's gonna be
sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So
how about you?
You're in Cluj.
Yeah.
Cluj. Okay. And the place that you came from was Oradea. And is that where the mountains are?
No, not really. In the sense that, we have some mountains actually between the two locations. We have a lot of mountains in Romania, but no. Actually, Oradea is in a grassland. It's just plain, and Cluj is like in between hills, let's say. So it's like it's good because it's kind of chill. It's chillier. Like, dude, we had like 40 something degrees back in Oradea, and that's just murder. Yeah, it's super hot. Like, yeah.
Talk of a heat wave.
Yeah, dude. Seriously, like this whole thing with the heat waves, and you heard about them in Canada and the US, and then you had the floods in Germany, and now I'm seeing there's some floods in China, and I'm like, this whole thing with the global warming isn't a joke anymore. Like,
it might not be, man. It might not.
Exactly. It's kind of serious now.
Yeah, in Germany, I think the last flood they've had that was like in the 1700s or something. People haven't seen that in their lifetime, and it's actually because the flood was so spread out that it's not just Germany; it's actually Belgium. And I think parts of France, and now sort of flowing into Austria as well.
But what is the reason? By the way, I actually didn't research it yet. But what actually happened? Was it just like a huge amount of rainfall, or what was it?
Literally huge amount of rainfall. And what's crazy is Germans got like exceptional infrastructure if you compare it to other countries. Yeah. So if a rich country like that can get hit, and the infrastructure sort of
I was just
falls
thinking,
apart.
Man, dude, nature don't give a fuck.
They don't give a shit.
Infrastructure is.
I don't give a fuck about your infrastructure. You know what I mean? Like, and to me, it was just one of those crazy things where I was thinking, like, how did from the beginning of time? I mean, you even have stories in the Bible of like great floods, and the Noah thing and how it swept away everything. And it feels like, the Bible was up on climate change like time ago,
I think this is super uncorrelated with anything, but okay.
This is just my 2 cents on that from a biblical perspective. But that's what they call it, a biblical flood. That was a biblical flood right there. That shit was crazy.
It was definitely strong. I'm not sure if it's like godlike level, but it's
up there, man. It's up there. So all the best to the people down there, man. I hope it's a quick recovery and everything.
But I was seeing some cities in. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, if there's a place equipped to sort of recognize the sort of challenges and obstacles to, the challenge to climate change and floods like this, it will be Germany. They deployed army and military people, like they did it the right way. And they make these jokes often that, like, or maybe not a joke, but they make these analogies between world wars and climate change. Like, you should approach climate change as if it was a war. And I think they got that. Yeah, a lot of countries don't do that. They just be like, hey, this should just happen.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
dude. Like, but I think with Germany, I think it's also surprising for them. I think it's gonna be like a shock because I don't think they were getting any natural disasters. Like, I haven't heard of any happening. And like, for example, in the US, I'm actually kind of like surprised, and I was always surprised how, I wouldn't say cool people were, but they were like, yeah, we're gonna have a hurricane or we're gonna have a typhoon season or whatever. I'm like, dude, why are you living there? Like, seriously, that place gets hit every couple of years. Like, why are you even living there? Like, even right now in California, like, the fucking forest is burning. Why don't you move? Like,
thrill seekers, man. Thrill seekers. They got tornado chases and everything in America, man.
Exactly.
That place is crazy, boy.
Yeah.
Other than that, obviously the world's been in a whirlwind. There's even been floods. There's even been floods in London.
Really?
That are not very spoken about. They've had flash floods in parts of London, which is weird because at that time I'll be in London and read about a flash flood, and you're like, this is in my city, but people act like nothing happened. So I do think this whole thing is normalizing us to climate catastrophes in a way, and if we don't get on top of it, it's gonna bite us in the ass.
Every type of research you look into it, like, if you don't want to believe in it, I guess you can, but like, if you do follow the research, there's people saying like, we're gonna have a few catastrophes, like hard ones per year, and in certain areas I think they're gonna have a couple of them, and I'm like, okay, that does not sound good at all. Like,
they're gonna increase, man.
Yep.
But on the bright side, I've been in Charles Dickens' home for the I think the remainder of his years on Earth. He was here, and in Margate, between Margate and Ramsgate. Ramsgate actually is where Charles Darwin used to live. I found out. It's crazy place where like a bunch of things come together.
Yeah.
But like, it's been really nice here. London is unbearable in any sort of temperature above 27 Celsius and up. It's really it's damn near disgusting, man. I mean, you can't do anything, man. You need to get to a park or some kind of place that has sort of good shade and AC. Otherwise, you won't make it. Won't make it.
Yeah, no, but yeah, it's bad. Like, even when I was back home in Orada, there were like 40 degrees something, and I was like, dude, I'm gonna cross the street and go to some shade. Like, is
that city full of like concrete?
Not that much. It has a decent amount of like green. But
see, but that's doable. But then you have to imagine London, which is like a concrete jungle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, come on, man. Or New York or something like that. That's really concrete jungles, and they soak up heat.
Yeah,
and it's
absolutely.
It's just insane to stay there, But absolutely. Anyway, nice little intro for what we've been doing, chilling. I've been on the beach almost every day, man. I've been letting the ocean waters just do something to me, man. But yeah, I guess it's time for
normal glasses.
Market analysis.
Exactly.
Welcome, ladies.
Not quite market analysis, but like, we're getting a bit more serious now.
Yes, it's serious time.
Yeah.
So we have a few topics that we wanted to discuss today. Namely, the sort of main talking point currently is just the Delta variant, just fears around that. Inflation has been sort of discussed more and more that, and the Fed has been changing their tune. They went from saying that it's transitory to now they are not sure what actually is going to happen. So they lack certainty that higher inflation is transitory now, but they still believe it to be the case. So that basically tells you they don't know what the fuck's going on, just like us. So inflation was a thing. Sorry, you wanted to say something?
No, I was like, it's not like they don't know what's going on. They're just making predictions and they're making assumptions, and they're either getting confirmed or they're not. So right now, basically, what they're saying is that their predictions are not necessarily coming true the way they think it should. For now.
Yeah. And we also have to admit that we in a previous podcast said that we see it being transitory. But looking at inflation indicators, I'm not sure what to think. For now, I probably have to sort of backpedal a little bit and say that I'm not as sure that it's transitory as they say.
I still think it's transitory.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We've recorded this, well, so we'll come back to this.
We will. I mean, it's not necessarily like a belief. I just think it's transitory because there are reasons for it to be transitory. Like all the reasons behind some of the price hikes are perfectly explainable. It doesn't mean necessarily they go like I cannot predict human behavior in that sense. In like there's nothing stopping people from having the same prices in like 6 months, even if the demand constraint goes away. Like they'll be able to do that if they want to, but at some point the market will have to intervene and be like, yeah, this is not fine. So there should be some competition. But I think if when it comes to human psychology, I cannot predict it. But I think in terms of prices from the demand constraint, I think there was a lot of demand constraint, and it's gonna go away in time. So that's why I'm saying it's at least some of it is transitory. So
yeah, I tend to agree. I just think going from transitory to saying that they lack certainty, I think leaves you in a sort of in a, what do you call that, limbo.
Mm-hmm.
So before that, we were able to sort of latch on to this transitory thing, but now it's less the talk of that.
Mm-hmm.
But not to get bogged down on this specific topic there, we also wanted to talk about fast grants, Bitcoin DeFi, which has been announced by Jack Dorsey as a new project. TBD is the acronym for it. And then we also wanted to talk about Tesla full self-driving subscription, and the space race, as our emperor Bezos went and came back down from space.
Yeah.
So take it away, Adi.
Okay, so the first topic is the COVID Delta variant. So as some people maybe have researched or saw, we're basically having a resurgence in COVID cases. So it's number of cases, which is obviously bad because that means people infected. However, the thing is, it's not so bad, and it's statistically not so bad. While there are people getting infected, and the numbers are actually quite serious. For example, the peak was the latest peak was this year in January, for example, the 8th, and there were like 67,000 cases. And right now we're having like 50,000. I'm using UK as a reference. And now we have like 50K right now. So the case number is actually pretty high. I don't think that was the absolute peak, but that was definitely one of the peaks in the pandemic. But so the good bit is the fact that people are vaccinated. Especially a lot of the older people are vaccinated. which obviously, as we probably all of us know by now, COVID is harmful, especially for people who have underlying conditions or are like generally old. But the good thing is, as you go down in age, it gets less and less serious. And now, apparently, with in combination with the vaccine, is not so problematic. In the sense that one metric I was using was hospital beds. And for example, in January the 8th, when that peak was, they were using up to 34,000 hospital beds. So basically, there were a lot of people hospitalized. Right now, they're only using like less than 5K. So whatever is happening, like if you want to attribute it to the vaccine, that's fine. If you want to attribute it to anything else, like herd immunity or whatever, basically whatever is happening right now is super mild compared to what happened in January. And another metric, interesting metric, a comparison between the two was the number of deaths. And basically in January, 1 or 2 weeks after that peak, like the caseload, most people who research COVID knows that after 2 weeks of getting the disease, it becomes serious. So basically, the death peak was 1.3 thousand on the 23rd of January, which is basically nothing compared to what's happening right now, where you have like 90 deaths per day. So again, whatever your view about the disease, conspiracy, whatever, the bottom line is right now it's not as serious from any relevant metric compared to the middle of the pandemic, when there was a lot of people in hospital and dying from it. So from that perspective, purely from a how should I say, rational investment perspective, I'm not necessarily going to do anything special regarding that, because I think it's just FUD. Like at this point, it's just FUD. It's I'm not
What's
sure. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so it's basically just the news being the news. They're just putting out stories that are generating them numbers and stuff like that. But I don't think anything serious is gonna come out of this Delta variant. It's super infectious. Like I'm not sure if people here watch the All In Pod. We do, and David Sachs was saying that it's 2 or 3 times more infectious than the normal COVID, which would make it R naught rate of 7 or 8. Basically meaning that one person can infect 7 or other 8 people. So that's bad, but apparently if you're vaccinated, you're getting something close to a mild cold. So we good. Realistically speaking, we good. So that's why I don't think this is a huge problem, personally.
Then why do you think it impacted the market so much? You just think it's simply just people reacting without really looking into the details?
Yeah, because can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Oh, yeah. It's because people are seeing the case numbers going up, and they're seeing the case numbers going up, and they're thinking, okay, whatever happened before, is happening now as well. But that's not the case. Like you need to look more in depth into it and see what the situation actually is. And actually, currently, governments, even the U.S., UK as well, they're not talking about lockdowns or mask mandates. So right now, everybody was like, okay, we're good. And I don't think that's going to be the case. Because, again, one of the reasons why they said we had to do lockdowns is to take pressure off the medical system. Okay, there's no pressure on the medical system now. So there's no need for lockdowns. So from that perspective, I think if you're trying to be rational about it, you won't freak out over this. So I'm trying to be rational about it. Maybe the market will react a bit different, and yeah, it will freak out here and there. Maybe with I don't know, for example, travel. I think travel still might be a problem because you get tested and you're positive, so you can't fly. So that's gonna be like an actual hit for them. But I don't think we're gonna have panic like in March or anything like that. So I think in terms of mass hysteria, we won't have mass hysteria, just some mild reactions.
Yeah, so I agree for the most part. I just I would just like to theorize about worst case scenarios.
Okay.
Because I mean, plenty of time during this pandemic, we've had worst case scenarios all play out um, in concert. So the worst case scenario could be that all of the unvaccinated people are sort of infecting each other,
Mm-hmm.
and then create a new sort of variant that is even stronger than the Delta that could break through even the vaccinated ones.
Mm-hmm.
So in a worst case scenario, there could also be the chance that, given that, for example, the UK has, I don't know, somewhere upwards of 60% of people vaccinated, that 40% of people is still a lot of people. If those people don't get vaccinated quickly enough, right?
Yeah.
And restrictions are completely removed, and this variant sort of spreads within unvaccinated people and then creates another breakthrough variant that then infects even vaccinated people, you
Mm-hmm.
could see something very drastic happening. But again, the likelihood of that happening, very, very low, given that the majority, a large part of the developed world has been vaccinated. But here's the other thing: if we don't quickly enough get, for example, developing countries vaccinated, which might be even harder than to get people in developed countries vaccinated, then you might have a problem where, due to, you know how border crises come up, how refugee crises and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that
Mm-hmm.
come up. They come up in part due to instability in the country caused by, government corruption, whatever, what I mean, like
Yeah.
mismanagement of the money. But it can also be caused by disease. So these people will try and flee. They'll come and mix with other people here. So but I'm just saying, this is completely, like me playing out a worst case scenario. The likelihood of that happening is very low, but I think, if we want to really discuss both sides, I think that's, worth sort of theorizing about. So that is definitely something that is possible, but the likelihood of that happening is very low, given that, you know, um, for example, in the UK, a large portion of the people are vaccinated. There's still some travel restrictions, and yeah, so and the border is pretty protected,
Yeah.
if you want to call it that, without getting into border politics. Um, yeah, would you like to add anything to that?
Um. Just some nuances. Like I agree with the hypothesis that potentially a bigger, stronger, worse variant could be created. But at this point, it's just a mental exercise. Of course, it could happen, but then again, a lot of things could happen. Like the normal flu could have developed and be deadly, and it didn't. So at this point, we're just hypothesizing that this might happen, and yeah, it could. But then again, maybe it won't. And another
True.
thing is just like I said, I think the most important thing with the whole vaccination thing is you're not necessarily 100% immune to the disease. You actually get it, but
Yeah.
your body is actually fit to respond to it. Like
Yeah.
before I vaccinated, I spoke to a friend of mine who's a doctor, and I asked him, like, dude, do you think there's actually some like general protection immunity like for this whole family of diseases like coronaviruses? And he was like, yes, maybe yes. He was inclining towards yes. He wasn't sure necessarily, especially with the RNA vaccine, but he was like he assumed so. So while this wasn't, I don't think it was necessarily researched. Apparently, there is some general protection even for the mRNA vaccine. Because yeah, so from that perspective, I think we're good. Like you have a vaccine specifically for one disease, and then for the whole family, you get some protection. So I
Yeah.
think yeah, it's good. At least your body knows how to fight it partially.
Yes, yeah, and
That's good.
there's the possibility also that antibodies are created in the process, and this whole thing about herd immunity, even though we're a bit far away from that still.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're closer to it than yeah, that we have been ever.
Yeah.
So so just to zoom in on the market fear and since we settled on the fact that market fears sometimes are irrational, and people are not diving deeply enough into what is happening, and then make wrong decisions. So I guess since we both agree that this is a bit overblown, the fact, if that is the case, if the market is selling off due to Delta fears, then we would also say that there's overselling happening. If there's overselling happening, that's a brilliant opportunity for us to, make money,
Sure.
especially on legalized robbery.
Yeah.
And just to show another tool, just as a sort of supplement to the tools we've discussed in the previous podcast, if you want to check out some of the tools that we discussed in a previous podcast, you can check out the last one, or the one before the last. I think it was episode 5.
No,
if I'm not
it was
mistaken.
6, I think, right?
It was 6, yeah, where we looked at Guru Focus, which sort of does market calculations for you, and sort of rates, profitability and so forth. And then we also looked at Open Insider, where you can see what high level executives have been buying stuff internally, which is also, a bullish signal. Today, I want to show our robbers, our legalized robbers, another tool that we use. So let me just show that. So this is called the Fear and Greed Index. Today, it went to the lowest it has been in a very long time. So this means that the market was very, very fearful. It has a bunch of indicators that give you sort of details on how to make sense of all of this. But when you go onto the first page, it's on money.cnn.com /data/fear minus greed. We'll add this to the description. And here you can see that today it went to 17. Actually, it's went up 3 points actually since then. But when I checked it, it went to 17. And anybody that sort of knows what they're doing in investing knows that you invest when blood is on the streets. So you invest when people are really losing their mind. And stocks get safer the lower they go, and riskier the higher they go. In essence, you have to go against your human nature, basically. It's easy to watch something go up and then sort of invest in it, but it's way harder to do that when something is going down. So a lot of investors use this as an indicator to invest. And you can see that a month ago it was on 30, a year ago it was on 65. So the lower it goes, the more likely you are to invest, or the more likely a smart investor is likely to invest. You can go lower and you have like some indicators. You have here market volatility. Market volatility for today is neutral. Market momentum for today is neutral. Junk bond demand neutral. Safe haven demand, there's extreme fear there. Stock price strength, extreme fear. Put and call options, extreme fear, apparently. Stock price breadth, extreme fear. And here you can see over time. You'll probably see somewhere here. I think if I could just look at it broadly, like my guess would be that one of these super low ones was May. Right?
I
If
think
you
it was
remember
actually
that?
quite the first big one, the big low one.
This one?
No, the other one on the right.
Oh, this one.
No, wow. May this year, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's probably the one you pointed at. Sorry. Yeah. I thought you meant.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
this one might have been when COVID
March.
started.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So these are the times where you want to invest. And to anybody that was always sort of scrambling, looking for the right time to invest, today is a good time to invest. Actually, I say this today, but this episode is coming out in a few days. So yeah,
Yeah.
you'll get this message late. But in the future, you'll know.
But if you're watching live, today is a good day.
True, actually, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, that's one tool.
Cool.
And now I wanted to discuss something interesting. It's something called fast grants, and I just wanted to talk about it quickly.
Hmm.
It was a project by Patrick Collison, who's the founder of Stripe. And when the pandemic started, he was asking himself what the sort of I think he was looking for a way to assist people that were currently working on things like COVID,
Hmm.
and he was asking around, like university faculties, whether or not they need like some type of help or assistance.
Hmm.
And he came to the realization that a lot of these faculties were saying that they were missing funding. And one of the biggest sort of investors that was missing was the US government. And oftentimes they were told to use the existing funding. And this was surprising to Patrick because he thought, that they would sort of have an approach of an emergency, because
Hmm.
when COVID first came, it was all shocking to us, right? So you would think that people wouldn't act business as usual, but apparently they were. And then he decided to take it up on himself, a sort of unprepared and unqualified sort of vigilante effort to support these sort of university projects. And they created like a framework where they had a website. There was super fast action, 30 minutes to complete funding. Some of the earliest ones got 48 hours. Got funding within 48 hours, which is why it was called fast grants.
Hmm.
Um, they ended up getting 6,000 applications, barely any spam. They managed to fund over 200 projects, 300 studies with papers cited and crediting fast grants this project.
Hmm.
Some of them are highly cited, and obviously, as we know, we've been to uni. We know that highly cited papers at least have some type of credibility, and
Sure.
yeah, mean that there's a lot of sort of thought going into that.
Hmm.
So what else was interesting about this was what came from it. And I'm just going to name a few of the projects that came from it. There's one called Saliva Direct Team at Yale, which is a saliva-based COVID-19 test that can work just as well as those nasal swabs.
Hmm. Hmm.
They had clinical trials for repurposed drugs, which is funny because you would think that you could go through like sort of common or generic drugs that have already been is it FCC? Yeah, FCC approved. Is it FCC? I'm not sure.
FDA,
Somebody
Food and Drug
FDA.
Administration.
Sorry, FDA approved.
Yep.
And you could sort of go through all of them and test them on the virus. But
Hmm.
apparently this hasn't been done as much,
I
or as much as you think it would have happened. You
Yeah.
were saying?
No. They actually used. So when COVID started, they actually identified some drugs which were generic. I think one of them was remdesivir, and it already existed, and they just knew it will work. I think it was either the essence of the virus, the fact it was a coronavirus, or the fact that it had the same spike protein as AIDS has, if I'm not mistaken. So they knew some things would be efficient, and they used it. But probably like what you're saying is they didn't just mass try the drugs, which I don't think is necessarily, maybe it's a good approach, but I don't think it's not like first principle. It's not like, oh, this looks like this. Let's try using this drug. It's probably these guys, they use a bigger palette of drugs, which might not seem to work, but some did, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, the idea is that, or at least the way I understood it, was that you're right. They definitely tried some, but given the gravity of the situation, given how serious this was, you would think that you would exhaust all of the possibilities, so to say. And on this particular part, it doesn't seem like they exhausted the possibilities. So there might still be some common and generic drugs that may reduce hospitalization from COVID-19. And one of the projects that was on there that they funded apparently managed to do this by 40%, and it should be announcing within the next coming months. And another project had gene analysis and sort of, CRISPR using DNA and stuff to do some sort of deeper analysis to find out the structure of the virus and so forth. Another project got some, intel on long COVID. And another one allows you to sort of track variants. And I think another one allows you to use an app to be able to tell what your symptoms are, even though I know that there's quite a few of those out. So the bottom line of it is that it was strange that private individuals came in place of where the government should have been. And this is not to make it a conspiracy or anything like that. I think this is just a sort of comment on a lack of seriousness or a lack of urgency that was in, or that is in, or on sort of upper level funding and for these type of projects, which is which is a good critique, I'd say, because even from the beginning of the pandemic, we all saw what happened, like all the backpedaling, all the masks are for nurses and doctors, then masks are for everybody, and it's not airborne, then it is airborne, then then you can get it from surfaces, then you might not get it from so on and so forth. So there's a lot of even at the highest level, there was a lot of uncertainty, and there could be a lot of retrospection required. So this article was super interesting to me because he was saying a lot of things that seem obvious in hindsight, and I think it just. Sorry, go ahead.
Do you have a number?
A number of what?
Of money. How much did he invest in this whole endeavor? I'm curious about the scale.
Actually, I do. Hold on.
Yeah. Okay. What's the number? Because I think that's super relevant. Because if it's it depends on how much it is, and I would imagine it wouldn't be such a big number because he's a private.
It's not. Yeah, exactly.
So
obviously he created Stripe, so he's
Yeah, Stripe is probably like 100 billion, and
he's got some change. You know,
he might have some money.
He's got some change.
But I would imagine it's not tens of billions that he invested into this. No. I would imagine it's tens of millions, or tops hundreds of millions, which is still a lot of money. But that's like spare change for governments, like really seriously spare change.
Yeah. So let me find the article real quick. So I know that the grants ranged from 10 to 500K.
Okay.
1 second. And they get.
Yeah. I think it's rather. I don't think it's necessarily lack of money. I think it's lack of, how should I say, maybe scope or view, in the sense that I would imagine governments were like, yeah, they can't help us with this, and they don't trust this sort of like ingenuity and research based approach, especially when it's at a smaller scale. Like whatever you discover, you always have to go through the FDA, especially in the US, and that's it. They're actually kind of strict with the FDA, but like
but that's the point. You had generic drugs that have already been FDA approved. And that's a huge point, that you can actually use drugs that have already been approved. They went through that whole stage, yet we don't have any of that. And it's not to say that this will replace vaccines or something in effectiveness, but the point is that you could sort of put this all together, deploy it to all of these emerging developing countries, and they couldn't become a black swan risk, which they could be now. Do you know what I mean? Because a breakout in some developing country is going to have all kinds of rippling effects all over the world. That's where we get a lot of our goods from. That's where we get in developed countries.
Yeah.
So the point being that some developed countries are not even able to send vaccines. I think one of the things that was striking this pandemic was the fact that China played that sort of position of world or global leader that is sending out extra vaccines to everybody. Meanwhile, in Europe, the UK was hoarding all of the vaccines, as well as the US. And in crisis, it sort of the hero sort of emerges, or the leader emerges. And it was very important, symbolically speaking, that the US would do that. But in this case, they fumbled it, and China took that position and sent many vaccines to different countries.
Yeah, and actually, this was more like a geopolitical play. Like China sent vaccines to a country it has ties to. The same thing Russia did, but that's the what's bad about it is there's actually research and information saying that the vaccines they're sending to these countries are either watered down or just not functioning. So
No
I
way. Okay,
yes,
I
for
didn't know that.
Oh yeah. No, no, that's like the bad part of it. Like they're sending either watered down versions which have no effect, or they're just sending, or their vaccine didn't work in the first place. Like I'm not gonna go there with Russia at least. That I think the story was about Venezuela and Russia, and basically they were sending a few a few thousand vaccines, maybe, or maybe more than that. But the point was they weren't functioning. So that's even worse. But then again,
Yeah,
after everything passes and this whole time just goes by, people will be like, Russia did send us vaccines. It won't even matter if they worked or not, which is kind of crazy. But at least, people will have the collective conscience that, okay, they try to help us.
yeah,
So, yeah, and yeah, like you said, the Western countries, they didn't do this that much.
yeah. So and even if it wasn't vaccines, like I said, they could have found a solution, like some subpar solution, via generic drugs, that would then be able to be transported to those countries. Because one of the problems with the vaccines is also the expiration, and they're throwing away a lot of vaccines. So it does show that there's a huge inefficiency in dealing with these types of problems. And so this article was really interesting in the way it approached it. And
Yeah.
I want to read a few parts of it that were interesting to me in closing on this topic.
Mhm.
So here it said, what was unusual about it was not any cleverness in coming up with smart things to fund, but just finding a mechanism for actually doing so. To us, this suggests that there are probably too few smart administrators in mainstream institutions trusted with flexible budgets that can rapidly allocate without triggering significant red tape or committee driven consensus. So it seems that a large reason this didn't go properly was because of bureaucracy, so to say. So, and that's the last thing you need when you have a crisis like this. You need fast action.
Yeah.
Another thing was they did surveys of the respondents from these sort of science faculties in these universities, and they found that 57% of respondents told us that they spend more than one quarter of their time on grant applications. This seems crazy. We spend enormous effort training scientists who are then forced to spend significant fraction of their time seeking alms instead of focusing on the research they've been hired to pursue. which is also interesting.
Yeah, this whole topic was a topic of discussion with Eric Weinstein and his brother with Brett. I think they were talking a lot about how like research institutions, they don't focus that much on research. They focus on tenure or just getting that position and stuff like that. And like, and obviously there's always this difference between research institutions where like, okay, you are in a university setting and you are higher education, but you focus on the research, and when you're a teacher, and they were saying like they're, for them, from their point of view, it's like it's going towards more towards teaching rather than researching. So
Yeah,
I guess that is this doesn't surprise me, like.
yeah. And it is sad because you have like some of these world-class scientists and they still have to scramble to get funding, even in a pandemic. You know what I mean? Like, it's so weird.
Yeah.
And it does say something eerily weird when they say that, one of the biggest investors that's gone missing in this was the government themselves. Just weird. But
I,
if you were conspiracy time, do-do-do-doom, do-do-do-doom. So let's just say, okay, if you were to entertain the idea that there's a way to make a lot of money on the pandemic, right? Wouldn't you say that it would make sense that you would only sort of invest in publicly traded companies instead of that you would invest money in publicly traded companies that can sort of create solutions for this problem at hand? Because think about it this way: if they were to invest in or put money into these small sort of groups and faculties, there's no ROI on that. They might solve the problem, yes, but you can't have any stake in them solving the problem. A
but dude,
vaccine company, however, you do. This is not to say that that's the reason why that happened, but just oopsie.
well, dude, you don't need a conspiracy. It's called lobbying. There's no conspiracy needed here. Seriously, I'm not even joking. And like I said, some of the drugs they use, for example, remdesivir, if I'm not mistaken, it's produced by Gilead. Then the other one from Regeneron, which is the antibody cocktail, also produced by them. So once the pandemic hit and stuff like that, if you did a bit of research, and actually I did the research, there were some publicly traded company which allegedly had drugs who could fix this. I didn't buy them or anything like that because I don't know, the economics of it necessarily didn't make sense. Although most of them actually went up quite healthy, not necessarily much better than the rest of the market. Like there were better opportunities to put your money in, but some of them performed well. But other than that, I don't think you need conspiracy. You just need lobbying. And there's
Yeah,
like, this huge company, and they go, okay, we need this money for this research, and they go like, yeah, okay, and it's like from I think from that perspective, lobbying is toxic for this whole startup mentality and innovation because there's nobody lobbying for the little guy. If anything, if they want to go the full capitalistic American freedom route, like universities should have like a small lobbying company themselves
yeah, they should have
as a collective.
massive funding, just. And I think what's important here and what's interesting so much about, for example, capitalism is that in this case, capitalism, it worked because obviously the wonder of this pandemic is really vaccines. Like, I don't want to downplay how powerful that is and how crazy it is that they managed to pull this up and all of these things. But there is something to be said about a huge inefficiency in that a lot of these faculties didn't get their funding, and the fact that it wasn't so much because we still don't know. There could be a drug out there, a common drug out there that has massive effectiveness. So to me, that sort of exposes inefficiency in a capitalist system that you can lobby in a certain way and it might not be the best product that wins, the absolutely best product. But yeah, who am I telling that? I'm sure that's not news to people. Oftentimes, an ideal product wins, but not the best. You see this in tech. Is
But
Apple
this,
really the best product? You don't know. There's a lot of machines out there that outpower them. But then again, what's best? This might be subjective.
I just, yeah. In closing with this, I just want to say, like, I think again, conspiracies and all is like, it's fun for, it's like okay for having fun. I don't think this was necessarily anything malicious in that way, but I think it's much easier for governments to try to find a vaccine in because a vaccine, you use it to prevent the infection. If you try to, like, to cure it, you basically still need the people to get it, and then you administer that medication. So I think vaccines are the logical route to go. Like, it's better to prevent the problem rather than fixing it after it comes up, right? So from that perspective, I think the vaccine was the logical route to go. Obviously, they should have explored more potential ways to cure it once you have it, because there are still people having problems with it, and there's actually people who have like long-term effects from it. So yeah, there's plenty of room there. But I think the vaccine was the right way to go in the whole
Yeah,
how to handle it.
yeah. Not to come off like I tried to say that vaccines weren't the wrong
No, no,
way.
no, no.
I guess the way I could sum it up is that um, some projects also needed funding that didn't get funding, and
Of course.
that's part of the problem. And yes, vaccines were the right way to go, but how many anti-vaxxer protests do we have? How many people do we have that are really, really going against this vaccine thing? And what is the philosophical implication of it? Can you force somebody to do something against their will? You know,
I mean, no, you can't
the,
force anybody to do anything.
yeah, but in some places the government's already discussing mandatory vaccines and stuff like that. So in terms of these things, you would think that in that place, a common or generic drug would be an alternative or some kind of
But
solution that is other than a vaccine would, and this would actually help all of us in that regard.
but they
So
exist. Again,
yeah,
they
but
exist.
not popularized, and definitely not, and the funding hasn't, and the funding hasn't gone into it, or even the attention hasn't, because you mentioned one. If I talk to somebody on the street, they
I
only
know
know
three of them.
biotech. Yeah, yeah, you know three of them. That's the
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
But if I walk to somebody on the street, they're going to tell me Moderna, Pfizer. um
yeah.
you know what I mean? Are they going to tell me one of the ones that you're talking about?
No.
And it's essentially it's a marketing campaign if you think about it, because Moderna didn't just power itself up like that. It was all of the news. It was all, you know what I mean? All of these things have been instrumentalized to sort of be spread, but none of these generic drug or common drug solutions have been spread. So all I'm saying is that yes, the vaccine is great, but given how much money and how serious this thing is, we should have other alternatives, and there should be other alternatives for people that decide not to take it for whatever reason.
Yeah, I don't know,
Yeah,
man. The thing is with people, like, even this whole thing with the vaccine, it's still a highly debated topic. It's still highly controversial. People, for some reason, I don't know, man. Like, throughout history, people have been skeptical about vaccines at all steps. I don't know why. Seriously, I don't get this. Why don't you trust a vaccine? But then again, you go to the hospital and that motherfucker can put whatever they want in your IV, and you don't even ask what the fuck they're putting in. I'm like, where is this coming from? Like,
yeah.
seriously, you know? But this is the thing. Like, if they were like, oh, we have these 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 drugs we can use to cure COVID, people will be like, why would I vaccinate? So that we don't have to use them, obviously. But then again, yeah, like, if you would tell people, okay, there's a
You
way
don't want
for
to
us to cure
vaccinate?
it. Who?
No, as in, I was kind of completing your sentence in the sense that you don't want to vaccinate. Look at this generic drug. You've probably had it before. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, but you need to get the disease and actually be in bad shape enough to get to a hospital so that they can give you that drug.
Well, come on, a hospital's really using those in a sort of popular fashion. I don't think so.
Oh yeah,
And
I think
are you
so.
sure?
Yeah, for example, the
I
remdesivir
would
one, I think it's pretty widespread.
I would love to see the data on that, because even from what I've read on this article, I mean, the article wouldn't discuss it if they didn't think this was a sticking point, and it does seem to be a sticking point. And just from my personal observation, look, here it actually says there are about 1,800 existing FDA approved drugs. What if one of them works against COVID-19? Is relatively straightforward, albeit logistically complex, to screen many drugs in tissue culture to identify some that may mitigate the virus. These broad screens will most likely yield a set of plausible drug candidates that you can then test in humans. While the specifics depend on the drug in question, these trials can be pretty safe. After all, you're drawing on pre-approved drugs. So this was the part that they discussed about. I don't think they would mention it like that if it was obvious that there was plenty of solutions out there that really work. So I'm not. I mean, I would have to see that to really believe it. That that
For
hospitals are using
example,
it like that.
this is the actually the drugs they used for Trump to get out. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they gave him remdesivir and the antibody cocktail from Regeneron, and that's how he
Yeah,
survived. And
yeah, I
dude,
remember that.
he's old and unhealthy. Like,
Yeah,
he shouldn't have survived.
but funny enough, it was bashed in the media to Nevuary, literally. And I remember that, and people were calling him silly and all sorts, but it wasn't looked at as a legitimate thing, like a vaccine or something. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
but yeah, not to go in circles around this topic, but
yeah.
I just thought that was an interesting
The
thing to
whole grant
discuss.
thing, it is. And actually, this might actually be a good segue to the space race, but maybe we can leave it to the end anyways. It's like, at this point, the private sector is becoming big enough so that it has disposable income and actually trying to fill some of the roles that government had, right? Like, in this, for example, look at space race. We have three guys. Some are richer than the others. I'm not sure what's the guy from Virgin?
Richard
Uh,
Branson.
I'm not sure what his net worth is. I'm sure it's less than Elon and Bezos, but like these other guys, they're doing basically whatever the fuck they want, and they don't need no government funding. They'll just build their own rocket thing and fly it, you know. So from that
Yeah,
perspective, like, I mean, Elon did, for example, when the whole thing started, Elon actually started producing ventilators from at Tesla. I'm not sure if you know, but like, if they wanted to get themselves involved in literally solving problems, like, this is what they're doing on their day to day, anyways, but focusing on whatever they want. But I think from this perspective, it's the whole thing of private versus public in terms of efficiency, and public will never just, yeah, it's just a different ball game.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I guess the bottom line is that there's lots of opportunities outside of public companies, and oftentimes those opportunities can lie literally within groups of people that haven't necessarily formed a LLC or LTD or whatever organization,
Hmm.
and it would be a shame if all of that ingenuity gets lost. So I guess this just speaks to letting innovation happen, regardless of whether it's from a big company or a small group of people.
Hmm.
And yeah, because essentially, positive innovation starts from small groups of people.
Yeah.
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 So to move on, we have Bitcoin DeFi. So we had the CEO of Twitter and also of Square, Jack Dorsey, one of my favorite CEOs. Actually, this guy is meditating, day in models, living his best life. I mean, I like him a lot. That's that's not part of my market analysis, but that's just because I like Jack.
No, it should be, dude. Like, there's a lot of people actually investing based on CEOs. CEOs are important,
Yeah, that is
especially
true. Actually,
founder-led companies.
yes,
So,
and Jack is one of them. And besides all this, shallow shit, I just think he's a genuinely cool human being, a good guy. Um, and he never makes the news over dumb shit. You know what I mean? It's
mhm.
always really, and maybe he's less funny than less trolly, but yeah, I think he's hard in the right place. Anyway,
Yep.
he decided to come out and say that he is creating, or they are at Square creating a sort of Bitcoin DeFi platform. And the post, let me just share my screen here. Brave tab. Yeah. So Square's creating a new business, joining Seller Cash app and Tidal, focused on building an open developer platform. The sole goal of making it easy to create non-custodial, permissionless, and decentralized financial services. Our primary focus is Bitcoin. Its name is TBD. So what's interesting about this is that, and I said this before, that Bitcoin never really had like a central person, which is its sort of advantage, but also its disadvantage, because the vision could probably get lost somewhere when there's
Mhm.
no defined leader. But at the same time, when there is a defined leader, the vision is too much focus on them, because when they disappear, it's just like the following doesn't know the direction, so to say. With
Yep.
Bitcoin, however, it's been quite interesting that it's been able to have this developer base, and they got to agreements through consensus. Obviously, there has been forks like Bitcoin Cash, and but for the most part, um, it's sort of been able to improve on itself without central leadership. But I think it's getting to a point now where the next level requires some, you know, person that can sort of funnel all of these ideas into the right direction, and that, I believe, might be Jack. Jack has
Mhm.
been a Bitcoin maximalist for a long time, and probably the only Bitcoin maximalist on the sort of big stage that I could get behind, and I think has a lot of credibility just based on his track record. Running Twitter as a company. I don't have to explain to anybody how sort of important Twitter is to like the world, the digital, the modern world.
Mhm.
And but not just that, with Square, another incredible company, sort of doing financial services, but upending incumbents, all of these banks, offering way better services, offering loans in a sort of automated fashion, bringing and helping small businesses thrive through their cash payment systems. They do these things where you can pay by card, and a
Mhm.
lot of these small businesses that were cash only or something like that, like they provide them with the hardware to take contactless payments, card
Yep.
payments of all sorts. So this is perfect for Bitcoin, because if you want mainstream adoption, ideally you would have some type of application or a platform that would allow you to do that. And Square, obviously has bought some Bitcoin, has also stated that they're developing um, a self custodial wallet, right?
Mhm. Hardware.
So hardware wallet, yeah. So a bunch of projects that are in favor of Bitcoin, and the latest one being Bitcoin DeFi. This
Mhm.
probably will be the hardest thing to do for them, in my opinion, because DeFi is so diverse. and the people that are playing in this field are just otherworldly in terms of like, it's real big brain shit.
Actually, you know what? This is actually a super interesting idea. I'm not sure if there's any public company which actually came out with a blockchain so far, right?
I think some have sort of been open to the idea. You have
Yeah.
MasterCard, you have Visa, and PayPal obviously has put some type of
No. Again, there's plenty of companies using them and interacting with them, especially
but not
Google and stuff like that. But none of them have actually started to create one. But if
true.
Square, because when he says Bitcoin DeFi project, that means there's going to be a DeFi project built on top of Bitcoin, but it's probably going to be its own coin. So it's going to be like a token, like a coin. So this is actually super interesting because this actually connects the dots in the way I was thinking. Like,
I don't think he will do a token though.
oh, he will.
No,
I
trust
think
me,
he
he
will.
won't.
I
Trust me, he
think he
won't.
will. Okay, yeah.
Shall we make a bet? Shall we make a bet? We'll make a bet on this podcast that he won't make a token. Trust me, he
He is a
will not make a
maximalist.
token.
He's
a maximalist. That is against it. And I listened to a podcast of this lady that is investing in sort of pre-IPO startups that do work on Bitcoin DeFi. And her point was that tokenizing all of these things doesn't make that much sense because the only real sound money, so to say, is Bitcoin, in the sense that proof of work forces that into it, and the tokenization of these things sort of minimizes their usefulness or their credibility. I'm sort of in the middle somewhere. I understand that Bitcoin is sort of sound money. The fact that proof of work, which we discussed in a previous podcast, if you want to sort of learn more about it, but the fact that proof of work and the way it's structured has security built so deeply into it that it makes it the best sort of kind of money to use to build a platform on top of. And I used to think that why wasn't there DeFi projects on top of Bitcoin? And to me, it felt weird that it didn't naturally come up, that Jack has to now take the baton, so to say. But
that's
who
the
knows?
thing, dude. When you make a DeFi project, it's like from a programmatic standpoint, if you don't have a token, you either have to do some sort of forks inside the Bitcoin protocol to allow some of the stuff, or you build everything on top of it just programmatically. But for example, this would be just in your platform, which makes it super. I mean, what is he exactly gonna do? Is he gonna do like an open source software that other payment system or payment providers are gonna offer, or like service providers are gonna offer? Is he gonna try to actually add stuff into the Bitcoin protocol as a fork? Like, yeah, he could do either of these, or he will just have a proprietary Bitcoin DeFi application which will be his own, but then that won't be open source and that won't be widespread. So that would be against the whole idea of cryptocurrency and blockchain. So this is kind of it's interesting. Like there's multiple ways for them to go, and honestly, a token would be the best one. But we'll see. No, I do get your point. He's a maximalist.
He's
He will
super
definitely
maximalist, not
try
doing a
to
token.
use Bitcoin, but then it's interesting the route he'll go.
But here's the
It's
thing:
not easy.
he's going to have to fund all of the devs working on that, because part of the reason why all of these other DeFi protocols work, in part, is because they have stakes in it via the tokens that were released, right?
True.
Everybody that's working on the Ethereum from the Ethereum Foundation has been part of a company without a payroll, without having to do anything, because they just had stakes in it and it just grew. So I think that's going to be a slight wake-up call for him. And I do also think that Bitcoin maximalists that are against tokenization forget that in our sort of world, we have so many things that are sort of tokenized in a sense. So if
I
we
mean,
tokenize some more, I don't think that would be such a bad future, so to say.
dude, in general,
It just has to be
maximalism
a
or like,
good product, you know? Like let it
of
you can
course,
have you can let it have a token. Just
dude, like seriously, I get what they're trying to do with this whole maximalist stuff and be like, okay, Bitcoin is the be all end all, the alpha and the omega. Okay, I get all that shit, but at some point, it's gonna become counterproductive.
yeah.
Like this starts to seem like it's gonna be counterproductive. I didn't even think about the aspect you mentioned, but you're actually super correct. All of the devs working on crypto project, they get paid in that crypto project's token. What is Jack gonna do? And actually, uh, blockchain developers are super expensive. Like,
They're not cheap, man.
yeah, I think the entry salary for US for blockchain developers is like 200,000 a year. Obviously, you need to know some shit, right? But the point is, it's not cheap, dude. It's not cheap. So
No.
I'm curious where Jack is gonna come with the money from, because even this goes back to the whole micro strategy thing. Are your stockholders gonna agree with you paying people ungodly amounts of money for a project you want for blockchain? They'll be like, dude, make your own token if you want this. Like, give us some of that money if it becomes profitable actually. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be interesting. I mean, Jack has some money, but yeah,
He needs a lot.
he,
Furthermore, maybe he's just gonna pay him in Bitcoin. That's the other
he's
thing.
okay. Who's Bitcoin? Because again,
Bitcoin's
if
Bitcoin.
how there's no
He's
Bitcoin's Bitcoin.
no, he's got a lot of Bitcoin in it.
Who? He himself?
Yeah,
I mean, okay, yeah, but he still has to pay them that ungodly amount of money.
he does. He
It
does.
doesn't matter if it's in dollars or bitcoins. He still has to do it.
I get the feeling Jack is loaded on Bitcoin. I mean, like
Maybe.
loaded, like otherworldly loaded, you know. But the other thing that the other news that came out is that Kathy Woods, the one and only from Ark Invest, our investment mama, is speaking with along with Elon and
hmm
Jack on the same panel
hmm
sometime this week.
Yeah.
And I think Elon's been very critical of Bitcoin, but now he will have two people on there that are probably the best kind of Bitcoin maximalist that there are, because they're open to other ideas, obviously, and they're open to transparent discussion of it without the sort of bashing that goes on in the rest of that community. So I think it will be a really good conversation, and it'll be good seeing all three of them together. That's a crazy sort of lineup, man.
hmm Yeah. No, that's gonna be an interesting discussion, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I also wanted to talk about just a quick sort of bull thesis on Square, the company that we just talked about, that Jack is planning to do all of this under. So Square is a financial services business that sort of supports small businesses. They digitize restaurants, bakeries, barbers, all that stuff, and all of this sort of on top of the fact that digital wallets, especially online ones with fiat, are becoming more popular, and cashless payments, which is what Square provides primarily, are also becoming more popular. And in particular, during the COVID crisis, it accelerated everything towards cashless payments due to
hmm
hygiene. If you just have to tap something on there, you don't have to take no money out or give it to somebody and
Yeah.
exchange bacteria and stuff like that. That's so 2019. But I even remember going to the supermarket and sort of overhearing a argument, because this girl was this was at the top of the pandemic, because this girl was trying to get some cash back, from the till, and she was asking the guy that was working, and the guy was like, "Oh no, we don't do that because of COVID." And she just lost her shit. She's like, "Well, I can't get no cash out, and da da da. What am I gonna do?" And yada yada. It's really weird.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I realized that this really is, how things have changed like rapidly. That somebody at a supermarket can decide to tell a customer, "Hey, we're not giving you cash um, because it's unhygienic."
Yeah,
So
but
they were,
that's
yeah.
kind of stupid, though, right? I mean,
It does feel a bit strange.
it is. It is. Like,
But this was just to underline the fact that our shift towards a cashless society has come
of course,
way harder due to COVID.
and everything regarding online payments has as well, and just shopping in general. So, yeah.
Yeah, and recently also Square acquired Tidal, which is a streaming service that is a sort of competitor to Spotify and Apple Music. And Tidal is popular for the fact that it's artist owned. So Jay-Z's the owner, but he got a bunch of people, like a bunch of people, a bunch of your
Mhm.
favorite singers, the guy from YouTube, Bono or whatever, Rihanna, J. Cole, and a bunch of really big artists, Kanye, um,
Mhm.
have been giving like portions of that company. And it was sort of to run home this idea or this message that artists are being taken advantage of. And I think this has been sort of a long conversation in the music industry. You know how labels used to fuck over artists all the time. They
Sure.
uh, they signed them to 360 deals. Now your soul belongs to me, and you have to make hundreds of albums. You get
Yeah.
one sort of payment of 1 million, and then we get everything
Yeah.
else. And there's an example of this with Taylor Swift. I'm not sure if you know, but her manager has all the rights to her songs and
Hmm.
was making all of the money. And then she decided to re-record her old album, but but it's the same album,
Hmm.
so that she gets all the money. So she recorded her whole album again years
Okay.
after that, so that she would start getting the royalty payments for that.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously, back in the day, you've heard of rock bands, you've heard of all kinds of stuff. I mean, even recently,
Yeah.
we've heard Britney Spears and her dad or something owns all the rights to her songs or something. Free Britney, by the way. Um, the UK, I think, government is doing an inquiry into the music industry and exploitation of artists. So there's a huge thing around that. So basically, Tidal is the antidote to that because they give a way bigger portion. I don't know the numbers. I'll add it later. They give a way bigger portion to artists,
Hmm.
and Square bought them. Now you ask yourself, financial services Square, streaming service Tidal. How does that make sense? But Square also has stakes in Eventbrite,
Hmm.
and Eventbrite is a publicly traded company too.
Hmm.
So I actually think that this whole thing is a sort of maneuver for Square to really sort of circle the whole culture, because they're already doing restaurants, right? They're bringing digitalization to restaurants, bakeries, barbers. Now think about events. They have food
Hmm.
there, everything that's related to cash. They also then could go into merchandise for artists. They can go into all kinds of stuff. So
Hmm.
they could disrupt music, entertainment, and event industry. And music and events go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So this is huge. Um, and this makes me very bullish on Square, obviously. What do you think?
I have owned Square for some times now. I think they're good, although I have a good opinion on Jack, but he hasn't. I think he could have done better in certain situations, but I have a good opinion on him. Square is doing great in terms of financials. like you said, basically they're an integrated payment app. They have their own software, their own hardware, and I think you touched on this as well. They also like monitor the company's financials, and like they also are able to give them loans and help, and they suggest stuff for them. So basically, they're trying to be more than just a payment company. They're trying to be like a business partner for the companies that use their services. So that's super good for them. Although I do not get the whole title thing. Like I know the thing with Eventbrite, and I understand that they have a stake in them, and it's super okay for Square to own stakes in whatever they want, but I didn't necessarily get the title move, in the sense that when a company makes acquisitions, I prefer to see how their services either might get interconnected or they're complementary. For example, like how Zoom bought out the cloud service Five9. I'm not sure if you've seen that.
Yeah.
Like I started researching that a bit, and actually it got interesting. But basically, they were doing, because that's one of the biggest cloud providers in the US at least, and they have a huge list of corporate clients. So basically, the speculation is that they bought that cloud service obviously for its services, but also for them to get a front door entry to those clients and try to integrate Zoom services with their cloud services. So stuff like this makes sense. But the whole thing with payment and events and streaming music, I don't see it yet. But maybe there's something there. But it's just
it was incredibly hard for me to see when I just thought it was random. I just like for one second I thought maybe it's just because he's friends with Jay-Z and he just bought that shit off of him. Like
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like just doing a friend a favor basically.
Mhm.
But then I learned that they have stakes in Eventbrite as well, and I was like, okay, that makes a little bit more sense. And if you really think about it that way, if Square was really trying to penetrate every sort of touch point, customer touch point, in terms of cashless society, and then having wallets and all this other stuff, they first have to penetrate culture.
Mhm.
And what's more culture than music?
Yeah. I get it.
So in that sense, the play starts to make sense. But for now, it does sound a bit far fetched. Like I would have to see it really fleshed out, like you said, to really be on board with it, because it sounds a little bit misjointed as of
I
right
mean,
now.
at this point, it already happened. I'm just looking to see how they're gonna actually use it, right? I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing. I'm just saying they haven't done any waves with it since it's called Tidal. So yeah, I'm waiting some financial waves with it, and maybe then I'll be excited.
Yeah. So yeah, our recommendation, find try and see when Square dips, and then just get in, man, because that's a
Square
rocket
dipped
ship that's about to go out.
Square dipped like 2 or 3 days ago, and
It did?
I wanted to buy the dip. Yeah, like a couple of percents, but it's up like 6% today, so it basically rebounded. So yeah,
Yeah, I think there's a lot to come with
yeah.
Square. So yeah, that's me on some of the stuff that I wanted to talk about. I believe you wanted to talk about
Tesla.
Tesla.
Yes.
Shoot.
So yeah, I wanted to. I think most people who follow Tesla know that they actually launched their subscription, so their full self-driving subscription. Uh, the key information here being that currently you have to buy the self-driving package when you buy the car, and you have to pay it upfront. It's 10K. Okay, you buy it with the car, and then you have it. But I'm not sure if everybody knows. You only have it for that car. So you buy it for the car, and as long as the car is functional and you have it, you can use it. It's not like transferable. If I'm not mistaken, it's not even transferable among the car. It's like car locked. It's $10,000. this subscription would be either 99 or 199 dollars. The difference being the fact that vehicles that do have enhanced autopilot would only pay 99, and the normal cars would have to pay 199. Like quick maths, 199 per times 12 is 2,400 per year. So basically, in approximately 4 years and a few months, you would have the same cost as if you would have bought the car upfront. Now, I did some research, and apparently, usually in the US at least, people hold the car for like 8.5 years. So basically, by the end of this time span, you would have spent double the full self driving. I was doing a bit of research regarding this, and basically, some people who are Tesla fans and like deep into Tesla said that this is a deliberate move from Elon to try to persuade people to buy the full self-driving package, the $10,000 one, just in terms of economics. There are some interesting aspects. So first off, the whole thing with the subscription is it's on and off. You can turn it on, for a month and then stop it, which is good. With the self-driving package you get for a car, you only get it for that car, and that's it. The thing is, he said he was going to raise the prices for full self-driving and also for the subscription. But then again, if you buy it now, the full self-driving, you have it locked in. So
Yeah.
he is like, while launching a subscription for an already existing full service might sound counterintuitive from the perspective that you're giving people other alternatives. It's actually the price and the nuances of it makes people kind of think twice whether they should or shouldn't just buy the full self-driving full package from the beginning.
Yeah.
And the economics of it definitely suggest that it's better if you fucking afford it, because if you cannot afford it, then just don't do it. And depending on the car, because once he does launch the $25,000 car, if you're going to get self-driving with that, that's going to be like 50% of the car's cost. So some people will be like, nah, I'm not about that life. So maximum they would do a subscription when they need one.
I mean,
So,
somebody that'll be smart, like like somebody that would listen to a podcast called Legalized Robbery. Somebody that'll be smart would take a loan to buy that to buy the full driving package for 10K, because if this is going to be worth way more in the future, why would you not buy it outright, and then you sort of have a fixed cost for it, and then
exactly.
Yeah,
You
and
can
instead
reserve
of
it.
exactly, and instead of forever sort of in perpetuity, as lawyers sort of hide in contracts, right? Apparently, that's the line that they put in. That's the line you have to be very careful of when lawyers write in perpetuity, which means forever. It makes sense for people to buy the whole package instead of forever paying the monthly fee for it. So yeah.
Yeah, but basically, there are some people in the US who have reserved, like, you can reserve, for example, a Cybertruck for $100, but you can reserve it, if I'm not mistaken, with full self driving. So basically, they're making like 10 reservations for like 1,000. They're not buying anything, but they're reserving the Cybertruck with full self driving at this current price.
Okay, that's smart too.
Yeah, it is, but like you still have to pay the whatever $70,000 when it actually does get produced, and you do have self driving. But that is a way of arbitrage, especially if you believe that the cost of self driving will go up. And I think it was either Kathy or some other person who is into Tesla a lot who said that basically the cost of the full self driving package could go as high as 100,000, which is crazy because you wouldn't pay that much for a car. But then
You
again, if you
have
think
to.
of,
Oh my
huh?
god. Oh my god. You have like Oh my gosh, man! People really have to get a loan to get the full driving package. Because I can see it going that far. Because you look at uh, how much data Tesla is gathering when all of these cars are driving around collecting data, communicating with each other and shit. Like it's gonna be more expensive, as the technology improves.
Yeah, but I think the angle for this is full self-driving robot taxis, which is basically,
Yeah,
yeah,
long game.
you just buy the car with full self-driving and then just let it drive for you and make you money, right? So then
Yeah.
it becomes a business thing. It's not about, because yeah, buying full self-driving so that you don't have to drive on your way to work, I think is kind of stupid. Like just take a train or a subway or something, and that's it.
No,
Basically, there's somebody driving for you.
I think it's still useful. I think it's still useful.
It's expensive, dude. Like you're paying 100,
Well,
dude. I think with 100K you can pay a human being to drive you every day.
oh no, at that point it's expensive. But if you
Yeah,
buy it
exactly.
early, if you buy it
Yeah,
early and then it appreciates, then you bought it for cheap.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But that's
But
super
yeah.
interesting, man. I mean, we've known that this has been sort of the long game of Tesla, and learned this via Kathy Woods at ARK Invest and all of the great, analysis that they did, and really forward and future thinking analysis that they did on the possibilities of Tesla really becoming a sort of interconnected robo taxi company.
Hmm.
Um, and for everybody that is saying that Tesla is sort of overvalued, if this comes true, it would be immediately undervalued.
Yeah,
But it's still future talk, and it's a
it is.
bet. It's
It
a
is.
bet that people might lose, that we might lose. But like you said, some investments can be based on people, and Elon is just one of those people that you yeah, best of not betting against.
Yeah.
Anything else
Uh,
on that?
Not really. No, it was just the nuance of the fact that they launched the subscription. It's not a huge price if you think about it, like $200 a month. Like I'm pretty sure people are spending $200 on much stupider stuff than their car driving itself, right? So I the price is not necessarily expensive for what it is, but if you look at it from a mathematical standpoint or like financial standpoint, you're much better off getting the full self-driving, especially if you're a bit frugal and if you assume you will be able to keep the car more than 8.5 years, right? So that's super cool, especially if you think, and if you think about robotaxis even more. Like you do some maintenance, you do some, obviously you have to keep it in check and keep it clean and stuff. But yeah, that car could run for a while. Plus with Teslas and electrical cars in general, they don't break down that bad. Like you mostly have to replace like door handles and tires and shit like that rather than actual components of the car breaking down. Like even, for example, even the battery, like you get a full self-driving, you get the car. When it's okay, if you have to, you change the battery, but you still didn't buy a new car and you still have your full self-driving. So this will be interesting for the future. It's going to be super interesting once they do come close to full self-driving, to see how they progress on this.
Absolutely. And we'll keep our eyes on it because we're trying to make that guap. Trying to make these returns. I'm trying to go to space. I'm trying I'm trying to board that Virgin Galactic flight. Okay. So speaking of speaking of boarding that plane, um, we wanted to also talk about the space race, the current space race that's happening, and I can definitely sympathize with the idea or the critique that it's just a rich people sport, and we're down here like peasants with COVID and floods and all kinds of shit going on, and these guys are just going on trips to outer space that cost like $1 million a second or minute or something crazy like that. I read.
Something crazy like that, yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
Um. but I think, and my problem with it is that like a lot of this stuff is so canned. Like all of these articles say the same thing. Everybody's sort of complaining about them, at a time like this, going for their little space adventures. Like these billionaires, and I get it. But personally, I like to always sort of look beyond that and see what's the real economic value behind it. And if you really engage with space as a industry, you realize quickly that this might not be as shallow as you think it is, or useless as you think it is. And so, just to give some context, this is for space. This is for commercial space tourism. But what space tourism allows, or what any of this allows, is a pathway into getting large objects into outer space. Large objects such as satellites, right? And there's a reason to believe that this commercial space tourism, obviously Virgin Galactic is a sort of umbrella company, for example. Within that, they have Virgin Orbit. And Virgin Orbit actually does or gets satellites into space. And a lot of the profit and a lot of the money that goes into space tourism is then funneled into the rest of, the umbrella of that company. And the primary use of those companies is to get sort of large infrastructure into space. And I think Bezos mentioned this a few times and stuff, but I think it's always hard for people to see what the use case for that is. Well, having a satellite in space has a few, and the main one that I wanted to talk about is satellite internet. Now, you have Starlink, which is a satellite internet company, basically, and sort of branched out of SpaceX, which is a spaceship manufacturing company by also by Elon, and they get satellites into space. Currently, I think Starlink has like 1,500 or something in space, which is insane if you think about it. But just to give you some idea,
I think they have in the tens of thousands. I think they have like 10,000 something. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, last time I checked.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So they have several thousand satellites in space, and Starlink already has 500 million subscribers. And the idea is that when you get these satellites into space, they can get fast speed internet into remote locations. What do we mean when we say remote? I'm talking the flipping
everywhere.
Suez Canal, the Mount Everest, Sahara. Give me some more. Fucking Kilimanjaro.
Exactly, on top of Everest. Yeah. No, dude. Yeah, everywhere. Basically everywhere.
The Amazon forest.
Yeah.
And what's even more impressive is that the internet speed that they get, I think, is double or triple as fast as the fastest internet speed in the world, which is in Singapore. And not just that, once they get the satellites up there, they can continuously update them as well. So the internet speed is even going to increase. And a few years ago, I'm not sure if you've seen this, but Facebook, Zucky, our guy, our favorite overlord lizard, I think he pinged Elon to in a project to get a satellite into space, and I think it was relating to satellite internet, and and this is just my theory, but to me it makes sense that he would do that with Elon because the idea behind it was to get internet to remote locations such as Africa, right? But I think it blew up. Which was not good because they lost hundreds of millions. But at a later point, I think Elon managed to get it up. No pun intended. To get it up there. And to me, it seems like a perfect play because Facebook was developing Libra, and Libra was supposed to bank the unbanked. The unbanked are mostly in developing countries, mainly Africa, India, some places in China.
Yeah.
Africa has been on the map for China to become sort of developed so that they have a larger sort of group of people to sell stuff to, essentially. And I think the same idea is with Facebook. If you want extra customers, you get that satellite up there, you get them internet, they can use Facebook on top of Facebook. Ideally, they would have then been able to use Libra. That plan is not, going as planned for for Zucky because everybody's sort of interfering with his plans in Libra. So we don't know what's going to happen there. But one thing is for sure, the focus was internet, satellite internet. And when people criticize the space race situation, they really should sort of look at what other uses it has. And this you could say that this is the primary use case for it. And they're all fighting for it, include that includes Virgin Orbit, Blue Origin. They're all fighting for this
Yeah.
for this right to sort of own the infrastructure for the internet, for particularly for the rest of the world. So there's also a case to be made for Africa, but that's at another podcast. Not to make this too long, but Africa has incredible demographic growth, and you look at how much the population is growing, and compare it to Europe, and where population growth is stagnant to the point that I think by 2050 or 2030, 25% of the world, like 1/4 of the world, will be African. And what's even crazier is population growth also means that average age declines. So we'll have the youngest continent. Having the youngest continent also means the highest number of active workers will be in that place.
Yeah.
And all of this is part of a reason to be bullish on satellite internet, because all of these people will need satellite internet. And so this is just my sort of take on the space race and the real motives. And just some tickers for this. Obviously, Virgin is one of the only one of the only companies of this kind. And there's a